Hello, everybody, and welcome to 38 Weeks to Go, your weekly podcast about fantasy football. Game week 32 is done. We have 6 weeks left to go. How was game week 32 for you? For me, I'm confused. I am being punished for my doubts with my team. For example, I have been believing that Solanke's form is a bit off, and I still kept him because I thought the fixture would be easy. And then I thought I was clever. I decided to start Akanji. I brought in Akanji on for Ake. I put in Akanji to start, just thinking he wouldn't play because it's Man City. You never know who's going to play. So for the most part, my team is doing well. And then for whatever reason, Pep decides that Akanji needs to play this game. And so he plays. And he gets a mighty 1 point, while I have Pedro Porro on the bench with 11. Outside that, I was disappointed that Muniz did not score at home. So I'm going to give him one more week and then I'll move on to somebody else. Salah was my captain, but that Manchester game was very, very tight. I'm very lucky he scored. I think I am no longer going to be backing him as my captain because he really was absent in that game. In the rest of my midfield, we had Son, who had 5. He had an assist. Palmer also had an assist. Havertz was a real winner for me with 14 points. At the back, Ait Nouri gave me returns with 4 points. He had an assist. He was tackled for the penalty. Ben White had a clean sheet. Like I said, Akanji had 1 and Kelleher conceded 2 goals. By the way, against Liverpool and against Chelsea, Man United have just been gifted goals, It's very frustrating, especially when you have the keepers on the other end. Caicedo helped Garnacho for his goal, and then Kwanzaa gave Fernandes a through pass for what ended up being a lovely chip. I got 64 points in the end, and that was above average. I'm very happy with that result. The average was 56, so it's not too bad. But still, our group is still doing well, so that didn't help me move much. The highest scoring match of the weekend was Manchester City 4, Crystal Palace 2. This game must have been particularly painful for 2 types of managers. 1, the kind that had just gotten rid of KDB, and 2, the kind that brought in Foden for this game week. And 3, the ones that removed KDB to bring in Foden. I'm so sorry. If that's you, that must be the worst pain. So, if somehow you do not know what happened, KDB had 2 goals and an assist. This game also saw the return of Haaland to scoring. It was his first for 3 games. Mateta, who I had hyped up before, was the first person to score in this game. Then KDB scored, and then Rico Lewis scored another goal. When Haaland scored at the 66th minute, I was like, okay, there's time for a hat-trick. I'm now low-key regretting he wasn't my captain, but still hoping for a return because I know at this point Haaland's ownership is reducing. Anyway, it never happens. KDB is the one who takes the next goal. Odsonne Edouard then pops up in the 86th minute for a goal. It's been a while. At the beginning of the season he was looking quite dangerous, but that really disappeared. KDB had 2 goals, Haaland had 1, Rico Lewis had 1. Assists came from KDB and Rodri. For Crystal Palace, Edouard and Mateta scored, with assists from Schlupp and Wharton. The bonus points fell like this: KDB 3, Haaland 2, Rico Lewis 1. Brentford versus Aston Villa 3-3. This was a surprising game, mainly because Watkins played. Many of us did not expect him to play, but many of us hadn't removed him from our teams. So for you guys are the real MVPs. You guys kept the faith when others did not, and you got rewarded. Watkins had 2 goals in this game. His second goal was the equalizer that kept the game at 3-3. Rodgers was the other goal scorer for Aston Villa. For Brentford, Mbeumo came back to score. It's been a while since we've seen him amongst the goals. Wissa was the other goal scorer, and Zanka. Reguilon had 2 assists for Brentford, and Damsgaard had the other. Bailey, McGinn, and Tielemans had the assists for Aston Villa. The bonus points were like this: Watkins 3, Reguilón 2, Tielemans 1. The marquee game of the weekend was Manchester United versus Liverpool. It ended in a 2-2 draw. I was right in that Salah scores. This game was a harsh reminder that in football, scoring is the only thing that matters. As long as you outscore the other person, nothing else matters. Liverpool went into halftime having taken 15 shots and Manchester United having 0. Then, out of nothing, Quansah makes a stupid pass. It falls into the path of Fernandes. He chips the keeper from nearly halfway. 1-1. Just like that. Then, out of nothing, Kobe Mainu scores a beautiful curling effort. 2-1. And then suddenly, they have to fight while they have been the better team this whole game. In football, there's nothing like deserving to win. The person who wins, wins. This was a harsh reminder that sometimes, even if the process is good, if you do not get the end result, that's on you. Nunez had a glorious chance to put it up, but he does what he does, which is miss easy chances, score impossible ones. Somehow towards the end, Wan-Bissaka tackled Javier Lotte, and for some people it wasn't clear. Salah steps up for that penalty, and I'm telling you, as somebody who had no dog in this fight, I was shaking because I was like, no, Salah, you have to give me something. You can't give me 2 blanks in a row. Thankfully, he scored the penalty. 2-2, and that's how it ended. They had a chance from Diaz to score again at the end, but he didn't put it away. Mainu got 3 bonus points, Fernandes got 2, and Salah somehow got 1. If I had to choose, I would say the most disappointing result of the weekend is Sheffield 2, Chelsea 2. Disappointing is relative. If you've been watching Chelsea this season, this result was not unforeseen. This is not like Manchester City drawing 2-2 with Sheffield. This is a proper mid-table club drawing with the bottom club. It was unlikely, but it wasn't impossible. Thiago Silva and Madueke scored for Chelsea. McBurney and Bogle scored for Sheffield. The assists came from Palmer and Gallagher on the Chelsea side, and Archer and Hammer for Sheffield. When it comes to bonus, Thiago Silva had 3, McBurney had 2, and Madueke had 1. The biggest performer this game week was KDB from Manchester City with 18 points. Number 2 was Kai Havertz with 14 points. Number 3 was Ollie Watkins with 13 points. Tied for number 5, 4, 5, 6 was Bruno Guimaraes, Pedro Porro, and Van de Ven from Tottenham with 11. There were 3 clean sheets this weekend. Everton 1, Burnley 0, Newcastle 1, Fulham 0, and Arsenal 3, Brighton 0. Dubravka for Newcastle was the top keeper this round. He had 9 points. Pickford was second with 8. Raya was third with 6. In 4th and 5th place was a 3-way tie between Neto, Vicario, and Fabianski. In defense, it was a 2-way tie between Pedro Porro and Van de Ven, who both got 11. Number 3 was Thiago Silva with 10. Number 4 was Reguilón. He had 9 points. In 5th was a 3-way tie between Coleman, Mikolenko, and Lewis from Manchester City. They had 8. Now that I'm seeing this, for some reason, because of maybe his position on the pitch, I just assumed Rico Lewis was a midfielder. Interesting. He might be like Ait Nouri, where he's registered as a defender but plays much higher than his position. In midfield, we all know midfield is king. De Bruyne was number 1 with 18. Kai Havertz, 14. Third was Bruno Guimaraes with 11. And 4, 5, 6, 7 was a tie with 10 points for Saka, Clark, Mainu, and James Ward-Prowse. I saw a bunch of you who had Ward-Prowse on your benches and then have him come on. You were the lucky ones. For those of you who he didn't come on, Polesana. For forwards, Watkins had 13. Calvert-Lewin had 8. And then 3, 4, 5 was a tie. Morris, Haaland, McBurney each had 8. Let's go over some facts. With his 2 goals this weekend, KDB became the 19th player to join the 100-goal club for Manchester City. Aguero, of course, is at the top with 260. The only other active player that you may know is Sterling, who had 131 goals for Manchester City. Tottenham have 60 points. This is the amount that they finished with last season. So with 6 games left to go, it's safe to say that they have eclipsed what they did last season. Well done to them. Chris Wood has scored for the 4th game week in a row and has delivered 31 points in that run. Have you gotten any of those points? With an assist in the last game, Cole Palmer has now got 9 attacking returns in the last 5 game weeks. Mateta has scored 3 goals in his last 4 games, so he's definitely a differential. Kai Havertz has 10 attacking returns since game week 25 and is the most in midfielders over that same period. Ollie Watkins is the first player to hit 200 points. He has 18 goals and 15 assists. Arsenal have kept 5 clean sheets away from home in a row. The last time this was done, it was Liverpool in 2019-2020. Arsenal are impressive. When you sort the forwards by form, the top 6 are Isak, Wood, Mateta, Muniz, Semenyo, and Fofana. Out of all of these forwards, only one of them is above 5.0. Yes, you heard that correctly. 5.0. The top 6 strikers in form, 5 of them are below 5.0. For this coming game week, the most transferred in players are Watkins, Palmer, KDB, Foden, Garnacho. I'm seeing KDB and Foden, and I know some people are going to get premium tiers. Most transferred players out: Douglas Luiz, Jared Bowen, Areola, Son, and Trippier. Wow, people still have Trippier. Son, I can get it. He's too expensive to be returning 2 and 5. But you'll find out next week that he'll be the most brought in player again after he scores a hat-trick. In our 38 weeks to go group, Palmer is now the most selected player with 20 out of 25 managers owning him. Haaland is number 2 with 19. Salah is number 3 with 13, tied with Son. Saka and Solanke have 12 and Foden 11. Those are the most popular selections of players in our league. The average score for our game week was 56. If you got above 56, well done. Our league table, our average was 62.2. So if you got above that, well done. The highest points in our group was 79. Just that goes to show you that it was a tougher week than last week was. Kimeo Mutinda was number 1 with 79. Number 2 was Demori FC with 75. Tied with Mato FC. Number 4 was Don't Bottle It This Year with 74. And number 5 was Highbury Memories with 69 points. 17 over 25 of our players got 60 points or above. So we really did well considering the average of our group. The global number 1 got 125 points. He used the bench boost. It must have been painful to have Foden get 0. His bench actually wasn't that great. Foden 0, Mengi 2, Aitnuri 4. Aitnuri 4, that's good. Dubravka was a real gain on the bench because he had 9 points. Otherwise, he had Watkins 13, Timo Werner 4, Haaland 8, captain was De Bruyne 36, beautiful points, Palmer 5, Saka 10, James Ward-Prowse 10, Braithwaite 6, Gabriel 6, Pedro Porro 11, and Jose Sa 1. It was a really good squad. I'm hoping my double game week will be like this because that's when I'm using my bench boost. As I said earlier, Kimeo Mutinda was our number 1. He had captain Salah, who gave him 16 points. Watkins was second with 13 points. Then Pedro Porro gave him 11. Saka gave him 10. He had Carlton Morris, who came off the bench because Foden did not play, to give him 8. Remember last week we talked about putting your substitutions in the right order. This was the right order for him. Carlton Morris came on, gave him 8. Gabriel gave him 6, along with Raya, who gave him 6. I should get an Arsenal keeper. Note to self. Palmer gave him 5. Solanke gave him 2. Bowen, who got injured, gave him 1, along with Bradley, who gave him 1. At the top of our table, Alexander Mutune maintains his lead. He got 74 points, which gave him 1959 points. The most impressive thing about his 74 points is that the people below him didn't do well. Vic Sethi at number 2 got 62 points, Leon Mortier got 61 points, and goodness gracious me got 59 points. The real trick with goodness gracious me is that he has been doing well with his captain choices of late, but this week he really gambled. He went for Muniz as captain. I don't blame him. Muniz has a great record at home. And like we said last week, this guy isn't afraid to make decisions, but this time it just did not go his way. The other Leon really benefited from Foden not playing, in that Braithwaite came on for him and he had 6 points. Now, he also had Dubravka on the bench, which must have been painful, considering Martinez only got 1 point. Number 1, 2, and 3 each captain Salah. And now, you guys who are chasing Mutune, you can't be playing it safe. You can't be choosing the same captain he's choosing if you want to catch up with him. There is a 25-point gap between number 1 and number 2. Between number 2 and number 3, it is about 18 points. Number 3 and number 4 are tied with 1906. Number 5 has got 1860 points, so he's not in contention for number 1. He's just going to be in Europe. That is LED. Between Eli and Tommy, it's also roughly 34 points. And then between Tommy, who's number 6, and number 10, it's roughly 30 points. So at least there's a possibility of movement before anything ends. At the bottom of the table, you have Melvin Kathrima overtaking Jeremiah Obiri. He has 1339 points because Fernandes played well. So he has 1339 and he has overtaken Jeremiah Obiri by 1 point. So it's really tense at the bottom, 1339, 1338. And then the real bottom of our table is number 23, who has 1577. Number 22 has 1603, so there's also a bit of a gap over there. And between number 22 and number 23 is also 70 points gap. So at the bottom, it seems like that story is done. These guys are relegated. Number 21 has 1674 and is close to number 20 was 1677. So at least there's a fight over there. Number 20 is Kimeo Mutinda, who got 79 points. Now between Kimeo and number 19, who's number 20 with number 19, it's about 34 points. So there's a bit of a gap there. And then between number 19 and number 16 is 30 points. And then between number 15 to number 11, it's another 30 points. So the table is broken up almost in groups of 30 to 60 points. When it comes to the fixtures this coming game week, we have a bit of a break. They're not as fast as they were last week. The game week is on Saturday, so we have a bit of a breather. But in between now and Saturday, we have Champions League and Europa Cup and Conference League. This means Manchester City, Arsenal, Aston Villa, Liverpool, and West Ham will be affected. What that really means is that do not make any big decisions about your team concerning those teams' players until about Friday. So delay your decision making to Friday if you're considering players from those few teams. Now, the first game of the weekend will be Newcastle versus Tottenham. Newcastle and Tottenham have not drawn in any of their last 5 matches, which means there will be a winner and there will be goals. Newcastle are also unbeaten at home in their last 5 matches. Does this mean clean sheet? I don't know. Now, for this game, Newcastle will be without Wilson, Lascelles, Joelinton, Willock, Trippier, Miley, Target, Almiron, Pope, Botman, Livramento, and obviously Tonali. Those are many players. No wonder they've struggled this season. Tottenham, on the other hand, will be without Whiteman, Forster, Solomon, Richarlison and Sessegnon. Newcastle beat Fulham last time out and will be hoping to contain Tottenham. Tottenham beat Nottingham Forest last time out. So both of these guys will be trying to continue with their winning streak, or rather create one. Newcastle will be playing at home, so you kind of expect Gordon to have a return. He's been really great at home this season. However, that's what I was saying about Muniz. And look at how that played out. But if you are still choosing a Newcastle player, Gordon, Isak, and then your preferred defender, that's how you do it. If you're going for Spurs players, if you're looking to be a bit differentially thinking, the player to choose are Timo Werner, who misses everything but somehow still creates chances, Brennan Johnson, Son, and then maybe Kululevsky, in that order. Son is too expensive to be giving you 5. But the thing about Son is that he's a kind of player who goes 2, 2, 2, 3, 5, 5, 5, 5, 20. And that's what's so painful about him. He's so hard to rule out. And then when you don't have him, it really hurts. Brentford versus Sheffield. Let me tell you now, there will be goals in this game. Sheffield have been in low-key, quiet, good form. And Brentford have been able to score. So, Wissa, Mbomo, and Ayer. But also, you can't look past Reguilon. If you're looking to be that smart guy with differentials, Brereton Diaz, Oli McBurney, Hammer, or Archer. Those are 4 players, but I can't imagine you going 4 players deep into Sheffield. Anyway, those are the players from this fixture. Those are the players to look at. Those 8, those are the ones who will return something. Sheffield are sort of turning into a trashy Luton in that they will be beaten, but they will score. So don't be looking for a clean sheet in this fixture, just be looking for them to concede. After all, Sheffield haven't won a match in the last 7 games. And Brentford are no better. They haven't won in 9 games. And Brentford are playing at home, and they have not won a game in 5 attempts at their own stadium. That points to a lively game. Burnley versus Brighton. This is a game in which I expect Brighton to come back into some sort of form and figure themselves out. I expect them to beat them. This is the kind of game I wouldn't be surprised if Brighton had a clean sheet led by Dunk doing magic. Having said that, Burnley have scored 7 goals in their last 5 matches. They also haven't kept a clean sheet in their last 15 matches. And then on the other side, you have Brighton, who haven't won an away game in their last 5 matches. So that can be tricky. And they also haven't scored in their last 2 matches. But don't be mistaken, they're still favourites for this fixture, and they should win it. Brun Larsen, Fofana, and Cullen have been in good form for Burnley of late. If I was to recommend any players from Brighton, it would be Welbeck, Adingra, and either Dunk or Estupinian. The last time they played, Adingra scored and Odobert scored for Burnley. It was 1-1. So there will be goals, maybe just not so many. Manchester City versus Luton. Manchester City will be coming off having played Real Madrid. And depending on that game, you know there'll be squad rotation in this match. So the most likely player to play in this match will be Rico Lewis. Man City are favourites in this game. We don't even look at fixtures. If you remember the last time they met, it was in the FA Cup. And it was like 6-2 when Haaland scored like 5 goals and De Bruyne had like 5 assists. And all of us were like, woo, let's bring in Haaland, let's bring in De Bruyne. And then they did nothing. So we're hoping that they will be played in this fixture. But it really depends on what happens against Real Madrid. Not only in terms of the result, but in terms of fitness. Let me just make this a bit clearer. Luton versus Manchester City will be the game in between 2 Champions League games for Man City versus Real Madrid. Therefore, Luton is an important game, so you know they have to play a good team. But Manchester City is a good team regardless of who plays. And that's what the problem is. This is not Newcastle in Europe where they don't have two teams. And that in lies the problem. Who will they play? We just saw Foden have a hat-trick and then be rested for De Bruyne, who then plays for him and scores 2 goals and have an assist. So it might be Foden's turn to play both games. That's what makes sense to me. I imagine KDB may be rested this weekend, but as you can hear, it's all speculation. But that's what makes sense to me. The older players, Bernardo Silva will play, for example, Champions League with KDB and Foden. And then those two are more likely to rest. And I think Haaland's going to play them all, unless he picks up a knock. It's so tough to pick Man City players. But good luck. They still want to win the league, so you know they have to put in a good team. From Luton, I can't imagine wanting to be like, oh, they're playing Manchester City, let's bring in Luton players. But if you are that guy, I would suggest to you Clark, because he scored some beautiful goals against them in the FA Cup when they lost 6-2. Outside that, maybe Carlton Morris. He had a good weekend. He scored against Bournemouth when they won 2-1. Coincidentally, Clark also scored. So yeah, that's it. Nottingham Forest versus Wolves. The last 3 fixtures between these two teams has been 1-1. And then before that, 1-0, 4-0 to Wolves. So in theory, Wolves have the better result, but recently it shows that they have been tied. Now, this is a game where I would say, bring in Wood from Nottingham Forest. He has been scoring of late, bring him in. Then maybe Elanga and Morgan Gibbs-White. For Wolves, you have Aït-Nouri, Sarabia. Those two. That's it. They have other guys coming back like Cunha and the Korean guy, but they're not yet in form. They're not yet with it. But Aït-Nouri and Sarabia are the go-to guys right now. Both teams have not been keeping clean sheets. Wolves have not kept a clean sheet in 6 games, while Nottingham Forest haven't kept one in 8 games. The result means there will be goals in this game. Just choose the players I've told you. Bournemouth versus Manchester United. This is the kind of game where Manchester United can slip up. They slipped up last time, 3-0, walkover match. Solanke, Billing and Senesi were the goal scorers in that match. Of course, before that, Manchester United had the upper hand. But Manchester United this season are like a better Chelsea in that they do well and then they disappear. They do well, they disappear. Jekyll and Hyde the whole season. You don't know what to expect from them. They lost to Chelsea in a painful way, then drew with Liverpool in an unexpected way, and now they have Bournemouth. Your guess is as good as mine. However, if I have to choose Manchester United players, I would say Garnacho, Fernandes, and the young lad Kobe Mainu. Let's go! From Bournemouth, the last time they played, it was Solanke, Philip Billing, and Senesi who scored. Of course, it may not be a repeat, but Solanke is always a solid recommend when coming to Bournemouth, even though his form is a bit slowing down right now. Then you have Tavernier, you have Kluivert, Billing, Semenyo. You know, with those 4, it just seems to be a gamble of late. So or even Kluivert, just choose the one that you like. In none of the 9 matches that they have played recently, they have never drawn. So there's no chance of this being a draw. Well, there's a chance, but a very low chance of this ending 0-0. And if it helps, Bournemouth are unbeaten in 4 at home. Liverpool versus Crystal Palace. Liverpool will be disappointed having drawn with Manchester United 2-2. It was a draw in which they were the better team for at least majority of the match. Now, from their team, the best players are Salah, Diaz, McAllister, Gakpo. I don't believe in Liverpool clean sheets, so I'm not going to recommend anybody from their defense. As you can imagine, Liverpool have a favourable record over Crystal Palace, even though in their last 2 encounters they drew. If you're looking into Crystal Palace players, Mateta is the number 1 player, then Eze, and Odward. It's quite interesting because Liverpool, Arsenal and Manchester City are in Europe and are still all fighting for the league. So it is quite interesting because they still have to fight on both fronts. And this is where the quality of your bench matters if you're these clubs, because you will inevitably have to rotate players and hope that they fill in for their regular starters. West Ham versus Fulham. Most recently, Fulham hammered West Ham 5-0. But outside that result, West Ham have the upper hand in terms of a recent record against each other. West Ham have conceded the most penalties this season. Fulham have Adama Traore and other crafty, pacey wingers. So there's a possibility for a penalty in this game. Jared Bowen went off in the last game. So the best players to recommend from this team are James Ward-Prowse, Paqueta and Kudus. Now, before I go on too far, I need to mention something that I have forgotten. This week, the goals of the week. James Ward-Prowse, scoring from the corner. It's like every schoolboy's dream. He literally scored a goal from the corner kick. If you haven't seen it, check it out. And then, in terms of another weird goal, Dominic Calvert-Lewin broke his non-penalty scoring goal thing by scoring a rebound. And by that I mean the goalkeeper kicked it against him and then it went into the goal. That's what it takes for him to score. Also, in unrelated news, West Ham. I can't believe that they're having such a great season, because whenever I watch their games, they really seem to struggle. As in, they get there in the end. And I guess that's what football is about. West Ham are just living proof of it. Get the W. It doesn't matter how. Just get it. They are currently 7th. That is amazing for them. I can also imagine them firing Moyes, saying he's not good enough to take them to the next level. But then, isn't that being unrealistic? Especially when right behind them are Newcastle, Chelsea and Brighton. That's a great achievement. Anyway, from the Fulham side, they're away, so no Moniz. But they could have read Iwobi, Willian. Yeah. Remember, West Ham will be in Europe playing against Leverkusen, the undefeated Leverkusen. So it will be an interesting game just to watch. But also, if you're choosing West Ham players, keep that in mind. Make your decisions on Friday. The marquee game of this coming weekend will be Arsenal versus Aston Villa. Aston Villa and Arsenal will both be playing in Europe. In a way, it's good for both of them that each of their opponents will have played within a few days of each other. Aston Villa are fighting for Champions League place, so this game will be important to them. And Arsenal will be maintaining their lead, or at least hoping to maintain their lead at the table top. If you remember the last encounter, Arsenal felt quite aggrieved losing to Aston Villa in the way that they did. So just like Man City, they will be coming with fire to demolish them and show them that they were lucky the last time they met. Aston Villa still don't have a good record against the top 6, even though they beat Manchester City and Arsenal. I know, but still, they don't. I am expecting a similar result to what happened with Man City for Aston Villa. And by that I mean Arsenal to beat them. I don't think it will be easy, but I think Arsenal are still favourites. They're at the top of the table for a reason. Having said that, let's see who is left available to play. And then let's see how fatigue affects this game. Moving on to the last fixture of the game week, which will be on Monday next week. Chelsea versus Everton. I would like to say that this is an easy victory for Chelsea, but that isn't true. There's nothing easy for Chelsea. In fact, the last time they met, Everton beat them 2-0. Doucouré and Dobbin scored. I remember Dobbin scored in the last minute and everybody was like, oh, is it the next big thing? Because you know how England are with their youth. Just like, they thought it was the next Kobe Mainu. Anyway, Cole Palmer is the best bet for Chelsea, followed by Conor Gallagher. And I can't imagine you needing a third Chelsea player. But should you, it should be Madueke. For Everton, it would be hard to expect them to get another clean sheet against Chelsea, especially given how fast Chelsea are. For Everton, I swear it's tough. especially since you can't really recommend defenders for this game. However, it's Doucouré. If you believe in DCL, I guess choose him. And then Dwight McNeil. And if you really have to have a defender, choose either Branthwaite or Tarkowski. Chelsea in 1 week can beat Manchester United and then draw with Sheffield. So your guess is as good as mine. Just know that Chelsea have not kept a clean sheet in 13 matches. And Everton have not won an away game in their last 9 matches. This sets up quite an interesting game. Now, when it comes to captaincy, depending on availability, this would be a good one to have either Foden or Haaland versus Luton. Maybe Welbeck versus Burnley. I struggle to say this, but maybe Salah versus Crystal Palace. Or your Liverpool player. Cole Palmer versus Everton wouldn't be a bad bet. If you're a proper gambler, this is where you say Brereton Diaz or McBurney versus Brentford. Or alternatively, Mbumo or Wissa versus Sheffield. Or something that's brave but not stupid is Chris Wood against Wolves. Let me know what you think. Apart from that, I hope you're all well. We will see you at the pitch. Have a great week, everybody. Bye.